Hey everyone, Garth here. Thanks for listening to Psych Sessions. If you could go to wherever you listen to our podcast and you would follow that podcast or like it, it really does help us as we are trying to get out to more teachers of psychology. Also, if you haven't checked out our website, please visit psychsessions.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We offer free resources and valuable news that you are going to want to know related to the teaching of psychology. Thanks.
I think an honor society can be elite without being elitist.
Interesting.
And that's a really important distinction. So how can we be elite without being elitist? Elite means we have academic standards for inclusion into the society. It's excellence in psychological science, research, and application. However, how we use our excellence makes us more inclusive and not elitist.
You've just heard Marianne Fallon, Executive Director of Psi Chi. Eric had the opportunity to sit down with Marianne for this 243rd episode of Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. Hey folks, I want to talk about autism spectrum disorder. Specifically, I want to talk about how good testing can help adults get the help that they need. But first, a few statistics. Did you know that almost 62 million people worldwide would qualify for the autism spectrum disorder diagnosis? That's 1 in 127. And when we think about teenagers in the US, that's more than 50,000 youth a year who are going to be making that transition from childhood to adulthood with this diagnosis. And many of them are actually going to lose critical services at this time. So enter ASRS. That is the Autism Spectrum Rating Scale for adults. It's scientifically valid. It's a multi-informant rating scale from leading experts Sam Goldstein and Jack Naglieri, tailored specifically to adults in their unique presentation. And it identifies late emerging symptoms and the masking behaviors that often go unnoticed. It's perfect for classroom demonstrations or projects and for training. This test goes for real-world relevance to help people. If you want to learn more, head to mhs.com and check out the Education and Training Partnership Program, or simply click Contact Us to get more information. That is mhs.com.
I'm Nolan White, and I'm a STP member because it is the one organization since I started teaching that has provided the most value both in personal relationships and professional development to help me become a better teacher. It was also one of the first places in my experience as a member of APA that made the organization smaller and more closely knit and helped me just develop a lot of individual connections that have continued to help me be a better teacher. Highly recommend that you join STP.
Welcome to another episode of Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. Every time I do one of these introductions, I say this, and every time I mean it. I have a very special guest to talk to, and whether she'll admit it or not, I'm gonna use this language. A dear friend of mine, I believe she's a dear friend of mine, Marianne Fallon from Psi Chi. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Eric.
How are you? First off, let's do the niceties, and then we'll get into Psi Chi. We'll talk about anything you want, and I actually want to talk to you about you a little bit as well, as we tend to want to do on Psych Sessions. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. Thank you for asking. Probably the brightest spot of my day is my puppy, and I know that you can relate because you have a new puppy at home too. So
I do.
My puppy brings me a lot of joy.
Oh, he does. Ours does too. I'm working from home today, and he wasn't expecting to find me still home when I woke up this morning, when he woke up this morning, and he's just been a little darling. He's not in the room with me right now because he got bored of me looking at computer screens, but he may be back. And Marianne, absolutely. My wife has had dogs before, and I say that sentence very specifically that I've lived with. I have never felt this way about an animal in my entire life.
What makes it so special for you, Eric?
What's that?
What makes it so special for you?
I think maybe I finally have the patience for it. I think the way he came into our life was special. It was kind of a joint decision. It wasn't, I inherited 2 dogs, but I got to have some say in getting this dog. And he's just been a joy. I can't believe how good a little boy he is. And so anyway, having a good time. To remind me, my dog's name is Bernie Sanders. What's your dog's name again?
My dog's name is Sage. Sage Green.
Okay, and what breed is Sage?
Sage is half golden retriever and half Samoyed. So she loves all forms of water, wet and snowy and icy. So she is great. She's a wonderful addition to our family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I think about my days at school as in, when do I get to leave to come home? Or if Bernie's been alone too long, it's like either my wife or myself, we turn our day around to make sure that he's at home alone sometimes, but not for great lengths of time. Yeah, he's just a puppy. He's just a puppy.
Same here.
So thank you for asking. So Marianne, for our audience who don't know you, will you tell us a little bit about your role at Psi Chi as an executive director? And I'll get into some more personal stuff in a little bit, but I'm hoping all of our audience knows about Psi Chi, but they may not know about what the executive director does.
All right. So Psi Chi, as I hope everybody listening knows, is the International Honor Society in Psychology. We've been around since 1929, so our 100th birthday is coming up quickly. We have over 900,000 lifetime members across the globe. So we have over 1,100 chapters that operate in, I think it's 28 countries these days. So that's Psi Chi. And what does the executive director do at Psi Chi? Well, I have basically 3 roles. The first role, and my favorite role, is being the external face of Psi Chi and interacting with members, chapter advisors, other external partners to really promote our organization, our society, and our values and our mission, which is to recognize and promote excellence in the science and application of psychology. So that's my favorite role. I have other important roles too, which are also very satisfying and gratifying. I get to be the person who manages the Psi Chi staff. And so there are 15 of us, including me, and they are some of the most dedicated folks you will ever meet, who are talented in many, many, many ways that bring so much to our society. I feel so grateful to be able to come into work every day remotely and know that each one of them is working in their corner of the world to serve all of our members and to advance the field of psychology. So that's wonderful. And my third role is really as a liaison to the board of directors. So the board of directors is elected from the membership. They're faculty or administrators at institutions of higher education. And my role is to help facilitate their work as well as their vision. So as they have visions and plans for Psi Chi, part of my job is to advise as well as implement that vision.
That's a lot. That kind of sounds like a full-time job. And so
one full-time job.
Very nicely played.
Thank you.
Before you became executive director of Psi Chi, though, you were, I'm going to say, a regular faculty member. Is that correct?
Yes, I was.
And so let me see if I've got it right. You, prior to Psi Chi, you were a faculty member at Central Connecticut State University. And if I remember, you were a faculty member as well as like an associate dean. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff at Central Connecticut State University. I was very fortunate to have a lot of opportunities for me. I loved being a professor. I loved interacting with students. It's the thing that I miss the most in my current role. I look forward to conventions just so I could talk with students directly. But as a professor, my favorite thing to teach was research methods. That was my jam. I loved it because it was always new. And for me, always exciting. And I loved the opportunity to see students really stretch themselves and grow in ways that they never anticipated. That was one of the greatest joys.
APA Publishing wants to give you 15% off your order. If you teach classes like counseling, clinical psychopathology, or multicultural psychology, then this is for you. APA Publishing has books that are written by experts that are grounded in evidence and really help teachers. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a book they have right now called Helping Skills. It's in its 6th edition, and it gives students clear, practical frameworks for understanding and learning counseling techniques. It's perfect for hands-on practice and skill development. Here's another one. Cultural Humility helps students build self-awareness and engage meaningfully across diverse identities and experiences. So head to apa.org because they want to give you 15% off your order today using code PS15. That's capital P, capital S, 15. Go check out APA Publishing.
Within my role as a professor, I also had these opportunities to develop in leadership too. So I was an associate dean for the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. I also was an associate dean for the School of Graduate Studies. And in that role, I got to be the assistant director of the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence at my institution. So that was a really fulfilling opportunity for me too. I worked in the provost's office for a little while as an associate vice president of academic affairs for planning and resources. And then I went back to faculty. And when I went back to faculty, I got to be the interim chairperson of theater. And that was so much fun.
Theater.
Yes, that was a trip.
So thank you for sharing that. What you've just described to me, described in my mind, is the skill set and the diversity of applications, the diversity of workplaces within a university that I wasn't on the hiring committee to hire the next executive director of Psi Chi, but from what you've described and knowing you, that you're the perfect choice. You're the perfect choice.
That is very sweet for you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, because going from the provost office to the CTL to being trusted of being that caretaker of another department. I mean, that's a very specialized skill set. I know a couple of people at Boise State who have that skill set, and I'm not one of them. And so I can appreciate the challenge that was and the trust that people had in you.
Thank you.
So kind of going back to Psi Chi a little bit, for our listeners, Psi Chi the word I'm going to use is decentralized. Would you say, in terms of the central office, there's really, although there's probably technically a central office, but figuratively, it's not central anymore. Is that fair to say?
Well, we are a remote first workplace, which means that, we have a home base. Yes, we do. But none of us is on site for more than, I'll say, 32 hours a week at the most. Most of us are working from home primarily. So we do still have our home base in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we've been located for decades. But we're all working from our own little corners. We still have most of our staff within Tennessee and the surrounding area in Chattanooga, but some of us are from Michigan, and some of us are currently living in Halifax, Nova Scotia, for example.
And so, we all kind of did this during the pandemic, right? I mean, we all worked from home. There weren't faculty meetings. There weren't staff meetings. The pandemic kind of thrust that upon everybody. Do you feel like that's working out? Let me just ask you that, and then I'll comment. Do you feel like it's working out?
It's a challenge because you want to feel so connected with people. It's not like you can walk up to them, at the water cooler or at the lunch table and have this organic conversation with them. You lose that. What you do gain is some greater flexibility in your workday, and that hopefully translates into work-life balance if you have a workplace and a culture that's really intentional about it. It doesn't happen organically. It really needs to be worked at, modeled, and supported so that can take place. So we're trying to find ways to really foster the connection piece, the organic connection piece. And it's very, very hard to do that in a remote atmosphere. So
yeah. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I mean, we try to get together with staff meetings. We make a point, and the board supports this, thankfully, of coming together in person at least once a year. So we're always seeing each other in person for at least a couple of days a year. And I think that is so, so important to have that physical time together.
Yeah. Part of my problem, and I'll just admit it right here, it's my problem, is that I have very fond memories of being in Chattanooga and being on the 6th floor of that building and walking around the perimeter and getting to say hi. The year I was president, getting to say hi to all the employees and popping into their cubicle and saying hello and going out to lunch like the board would do with the central office, which I'm glad you're still doing and getting together. But, mayor's mansion, where the board would stay, and we'd have these super long days of work and then this dinner out together, and then everyone would be dead tired. We'd go back to mayor's mansion and we'd hang out on the front patio, on the front porch for another couple hours. I mean, to me, and I know this is the old man talking, I have this probably overfond memory of that. And it makes me a little sad that now it's gone. Hopefully you're recreating it in other ways. And Marianne, I think you're exactly right. Work-life balance, if you want to keep the best and brightest, give them the most opportunities, the most flexibility, the most degrees of freedom to work from wherever they are, to be at home, to not have to commute, to save money that way, and I'm sure in other ways.
I mean, those times, Eric, are very, very fond memories for me too. It really shaped what I thought the culture of Psi Chi was, at least from the board perspective. And I mean, I was less so attuned to what was going on the staff side when I was a board member, not like you being the president of the organization and me as a VP who kind of parachuted in and parachuted out. But those moments of just, I'll call them shared humanity, really serve to connect us in ways that can't be replicated online. Right. I don't think so, or at least I haven't figured out a way of doing that.
Yeah. And the chance to get to know the staff. I know there's been some turnover, as there always is in any organization, but the chance for me to get to know the staff. You see the articles written in Ion Psi Chi, you see the journal, you have brief interactions with staff sometimes as a faculty advisor, but to have that opportunity to get to know them and see how dedicated they were and see, I think humanity is a great word. I think, I'm trying to come up with the word, just sharing that time together with them and getting to know them a little bit. Yeah, it's time that I cherish in my Psi Chi experiences. So let me so tell us a little bit about what's exciting about Psi Chi? What's going on right now? I know there are always initiatives. There's always things in the works. Psi Chi is a very complex organization, but it's complex because it serves a lot of purposes. Marianne, what's going on these days that you are excited to share with our listening audience?
Oh boy. How much time do you have?
We've got about an hour. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me get started then.
You might have to only hit the highlights and then come back for a part 2 sometime.
So I think probably the things that I'm most proud of have to do with equity and accessibility in Psi Chi. As an honor society, and I hear this from other honor society leaders, you run up against this perception that we're elitist. And I think an honor society can be elite without being elitist.
Interesting.
And that's a really important distinction. So how can we be elite without being elitist? Elite means we have academic standards for inclusion into the society. It's excellence in psychological science, research, and application. However, how we use our excellence makes us more inclusive and not elitist.
Hi folks, let's talk about intro psych textbooks. They often tell our students what to learn, but they don't tell them how to learn. And that's why Norton has brought in award-winning teachers like Stephen Chu and Ebony Glover to join Sarah Grisson on the title Psychology in Your Life, with a new emphasis on critical thinking through their Impact Learning Science Framework. IMPACT is an acronym, and it consists of 6 of the most actionable learning science principles that students need to succeed. And for the first time, these strategies aren't just explained, they're interactive. So as your students are learning course content, they're also practicing skills like monitoring, attending, and thinking critically, using the study tips that feel most helpful to them. And the result is that students don't just learn psychology, they use psychology to succeed in school and in life. And Norton is going to give you a $15 thank you gift if you take 15 minutes to tour around the book. Just head to intropsych.www.norton.com/psych sessions.
So within Psi Chi, we are constantly trying to give psychology away and make it accessible to all. So Eric, you mentioned our publications, right? Those are open access to everyone. The Psi Chi Journal of Psychological Research, anyone can access that. Anyone. You have to be a member on the authorship team in order to be considered for publication. But other than that, it's open to all. Our Eye on Psi Chi magazine, open to all. Podcasts, open to all. Blog, everybody can read it. So we are really committed to giving psychology away. At our regional conventions and the programming that Psi Chi does for regional conventions, everyone is invited to those sessions. Our keynote and distinguished speakers, where we try to bring some of the most inspiring speakers, researchers, mentors, to share what they have accomplished and share how they have advanced psychology with everyone at that convention. I mean, it is an absolute privilege to lead an organization where we are trying to make psychology so accessible to all globally.
Yeah, I think chapters try to follow that lead of the central office. I think for most chapters, I know at my local chapter, events are not exclusive to Psi Chi members. I mean, even if someone wanted to come to our induction ceremony, we wouldn't say no to that. And so we might bring in a speaker to talk about a CV workshop, let's say, or to talk about their latest research. But we make that open to every student. It's the Psi Chi officers who are organizing it, but it's open to every student. So I like the idea of elite, but not elitist. That should go on a t-shirt somewhere.
Yeah, I'll work with our communications team on that.
Yeah, I'm sure they're busy. And if you do that, please don't tell them I suggested it, because then it's just going to feel like I'm piling on from afar, and I really shouldn't do that. I know I interrupted you, Marianne. What other things are going on these days that you're excited about?
at all. Well, I'll keep going on the equity and accessibility.
Oh, please do. Please
because
do.
this is, I think this is really such a core value for us. So another priority that the board has is they want to ensure or work towards a future where any student who is academically qualified to be in Psi Chi can do so, that a financial barrier does not stand in their way from this important academic recognition. And so what we've been doing progressively over a couple of years is really trying to build our capacity to offer membership assistance to qualified students who can't join Psi Chi just because they can't financially afford it. And so we have been working incredibly hard by changing policy, by asking people to be very generous in their donations so that we can support more and more students. And last year, we were able to support, by our donors' generosity as well as our boards, 371 students.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was a lot. And we are hoping to increase that this year. We have more requests for waivers than ever before. We know what's going on out there, and we know the stresses that is putting on students, their families, professors, and we're seeing the effects of that strain. And we really want to meet that demand and that need because we know the type of community that students can get out of being in Psi Chi and the types of opportunities that open up to them from being in Psi Chi. So we're trying to make that possible for as many students as we possibly can. So I'm really proud of that work. We're also...
Well, I think it speaks to something important that, if someone's not understanding the complete organization, someone could come along and say, well, why doesn't Psi Chi just waive these and give it away for free? And I believe there's an inherent problem with that, in that Psi Chi, to serve all its members, does need to collect those dues. It does need to collect sales from merch and things like that. And so it might be nice to have this kind of initial thought of why not just waive it. But I think to sustain the organization, what you're doing is better, which is looking for donors to help essentially sponsor new students, and the students will have the effect of feeling the fees being waived, but the fees really aren't being waived. They're just being fundraised in a different manner.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And we try to build our capacity that way. And I will also say that those membership fees that we bring in and other revenue streams like merchandise, advertising, those kinds of things, we really put that back into programming. So that regional convention programming that I was talking about earlier, that's funded by membership fees and other sources of revenue. The awards, grants, and scholarships that we offer every year, over $400,000 annually, go right back to students and faculty and chapters to support their education, to support their research, to support their work, to support their community building. So we are constantly putting money, reinvesting the money that we bring in right back into our members and into psychology. As I was saying about our publications, we give all of that away. And we are able to do that because we have such a strong membership base. We're able to do that. And we hope to continue to be able to do that. We've also tried to really be more mindful of economic equity globally. So we're a global international organization, and we recognize that the membership fee of $55 USD does not feel that way in different countries and in local currencies. So another thing I'm really proud of that we did this year was readjust how we calculated international membership fees so that it feels like $55 USD in the local currency and economy. right? So we're not imposing like it's $55 and we'll prorate it down, whatever it happens to be. It's what does it feel like to you? And we want to try to make that as equitable as possible across all of our global chapters.
Yeah, that's something new since I've been on the board. And so what an interesting thing. You're right. $55 to a student in the US may feel $55, and let's say Guatemala or Peru, $55 there could be a very different chunk of a person's annual salary or their earnings or their savings. Yeah.
Exactly. So we wanted the membership fees to really try to reflect student realities.
Yeah, that is nicely done. Nicely done, Psi Chi. Nicely done. I have some questions about you, but I want to make sure that we get out all the Psi Chi ooey goodness that you have
for our
listeners.
Much ooey goodness. So much ooey goodness. Oh, here's another really cool thing that we're doing at SWAPA this year. So the Southwestern Psychological Association. We are committed as in Psi Chi towards a global psychology. So we've heard about weird samples where our understanding of psychology and the human condition is limited by the samples that typically end up being published. And so Psi Chi is doing a couple of things in that regard. Number one, at SWAPA this year, we are having a global research showcase. So we have a call for proposals out to our international chapters. Students are submitting proposals for their research. They're being reviewed by committee. And so we'll have 2 sessions at SWAPA featuring students from across the globe sharing their original research. So we're super excited about that. And of course, we have our NICE platform. So NICE is our network for international collaborative exchange. Psi Chi is a strong proponent of open science and global crowdsourced research in order to try to understand psychology from a global perspective. And so every year we crowdsource a project that we then find contributors for across the globe. Again, you do not have to be in Psi Chi to participate in this program. We have contributors from countries on every continent except Antarctica for these projects. And what we're really trying to do through these projects is create and support a global psychology.
There are so many pieces and parts and moving parts to Psi Chi. It's almost like you guys need like a website or something where someone can keep track of everything.
Good idea. Oh my gosh. And you know what? I think the URL should be www.psichi.org, just off the top of my head. I think that would be a great idea.
That can't be available. I mean, I'm sure someone has snapped that up. Yeah, for our listeners, that's psichi.org, SICHI.org. I honestly, I think it's hard for faculty members, faculty advisors, maybe even VPs, vice presidents of the regions, to keep track of all the things. I mean, there's just so many different things going on, so many moving parts, so many important pieces. Psi Chi is an organization that is truly near and dear to my heart, as I know it is yours, obviously.
Yes, Eric. Thank you. And so, I would be remiss if I didn't also thank you for the service that you have given Psi Chi, not only on the board, but also as a chapter advisor.
I thank you very much. Jane Hallinan has been training me for years on how to take a compliment and not turn it around or dismiss it. So thank you, Marianne. Thank you very much. I'm thinking something different, but I'm gonna be polite out loud. So thank you. We mentioned Central Connecticut a couple of minutes ago, and if you don't mind, we can talk more about Psi Chi if you want to. But I was thinking reverse chronological, but no, I think I want to go chronological. So tell me about Marianne in high school, would you please?
Oh, boy.
So athlete, debate, math geek, drama, choir. What was Marianne's jam in high school?
Marianne's jam. So I went to an all-girls Catholic high school in Bayonne, New Jersey. And I was highly involved in everything. So I was captain of the basketball team, captain of the softball team.
Yep.
I played in the orchestra. I sang in the choir. I was in the musicals. In senior year, I was Nellie Forbush in South Pacific, which was a trip. It was very fun. And and I also did academics.
Of course you did. What instrument did you play in orchestra?
I played the flute.
You played the flute. Okay. When I ask that question, every now and again, I hear French horn, which is what I played in high school. And so it's always nice to find an occasional French horn player in my friends that I get to interview for psych sessions. So so here's my favorite question. And I ask this a lot. Growing up, was it, will Marianne go to college, or was it, what college will Marianne go to?
So for me, it was more of what college will Marianne go to, which was very surprising to my parents because my mother hated school and expected a child of hers not to enjoy school either. And yet, when she realized I really liked school, she was the one who was saying, well, have you looked at this school? Have you looked at this college? Have you looked at this university? She was the one. I wouldn't have gone to the university I went to were it not for my mother. I would have never known the university existed. It was her doing completely.
And what university was that?
That was Bucknell University.
In Pennsylvania?
Yes, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. And when you went to Bucknell, were you initially declared as a psychology major?
No, I was not.
Well,
I was a bio major.
Why?
Because I wanted to be a pediatrician. I knew I wanted to work with kids. And so I wanted to be a pediatrician. And so I wrangled my way into organic chemistry and toughed out my first year and realized, no disrespect to my classmates, but I did not want to be with them for the next 3 years.
Oh, interesting.
Psych Sessions is proud to partner with Macmillan Learning. At Macmillan Learning Psychology, content matters, and these days, digital content matters more than ever. Macmillan Learning's Achieve elevates interactive teaching and learning with an extraordinary range of online course content in a powerful yet easy-to-use platform. Interactive ebooks, innovative assessments, engaging videos and activities, helpful instructor resources. Achieve brings it all together and makes it easy for you to find what you need and what you want. See for yourself. Go to macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions for an introductory tour today. Macmillan's Achieve for Psychology, engaging every student, supporting every instructor, setting the new standard for teaching and learning.
So I mean, and I know you well enough to know it wasn't that you couldn't do the coursework, because obviously I'm sure you could, even though it might have been a struggle at 18 or 19 years old. But you changed majors because of your cohort.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was too competitive and cutthroat. I didn't enjoy the people that were in my cohort at all. And I would say I really did struggle academically my first year. Even though I did really well in high school, that transition for me that first year was dramatic. And I did not do well my first year at all. So getting into my second year and finding I was a bio psych double major for a semester. And then I was like, no, I'm going straight to psych. And I found developmental psychology, fell in love with developmental psychology, thought, okay, I might not be a medical doctor for kids, but I definitely can work with kids and I help kids learn more about kids and help them have better lives.
So, I have to ask, did Bucknell have a Psi Chi chapter?
They did.
And was Marianne a member of that Psi Chi chapter as an undergrad?
I was a member and I was inducted in 1995, which is 30 years ago. So I have my 30th anniversary. And as I have said publicly before, was not involved in Psi Chi at all
Okay.
as an undergraduate.
Sure.
I thought, oh, great honorific. That's wonderful. But I was involved in a lot of other things like university chorale and chapel choir and opera company and Alpha Phi Omega service fraternity and other things. So I was doing a lot of other things on campus, but Psi Chi was not on my radar then.
How about, were you a research assistant or teaching assistant?
I was both.
Okay.
I was a teaching assistant for developmental psychology, and I was a research assistant for a cognitive psychology professor, Andre Halpern, who was my first mentor, and I owe a lot to.
Absolutely. And then you get your bachelor's degree in psychology at Bucknell, and then what's next after that?
And then I go to University of Toronto for my master's and PhD.
Okay, so hang on a second. So where did you grow up? I'm sorry, I've forgotten.
That would be Bayonne, New Jersey.
Okay, Bayonne, New Jersey. So New Jersey to Pennsylvania, not that big, a little bit of an adjustment. But I'm thinking from either of those places to Toronto, that is a huge adjustment.
It was. It was. And again, I have to credit my mother, who has never been outside of the continental United States, who I don't think has been farther west than Florida, to be honest.
Wow.
Yes. Who I was saying, I think I should be going to graduate school. Andrew Halpern, of course, was mentoring me and said, you really should go to graduate school. And the person who I felt like I fit the most with or had the most overlap with was Sandra Trejo in University of Toronto, who did both music and language development. And so I loved both of those pieces, and I had done research in both of those fields. And so it was a great fit. And that was, of course, my first choice. And then it's in Canada. And this was like, these were in the days when the World Wide Web was new. Like, it was like, oh, you go onto the World Wide Web and maybe they have a website and maybe you get the application from the website and all of these things, right? And I have to tell you, when I was applying to graduate school, I missed the deadline for University of Toronto. I missed the deadline because I read it and there was like one thing for psychology and there was another deadline for the general graduate program. And so I was like, oh, I'm ahead of the game. This is great. And then I read it again and I realized, oh, I missed the deadline. And I call up University of Toronto and I speak with the most lovely assistant and I explain the situation. And I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. And she said, well, you can always just send it in and see what happens. And that's what I did. And I'm very glad I did that. And I'm so glad that Anne, who turned into being like the den mother for all graduate students at the University of Toronto, was so very kind and encouraging. It's like, well, that might not be a fatal mistake. Just try. Okay, will do.
Yeah, that could have gone very differently. Yeah.
Absolutely very differently.
Yeah, but it had to, graduate school is challenging enough for everybody. At least it was for me. But going to graduate school in a different country, you had to like up the challenge game there. I mean, and plus I've never lived in Toronto, but I've been in Toronto a couple of times. Lovely city, amazing city. I've always enjoyed my experiences there. Wish I could spend more time there. But you had to adapt to, moving to grad school like many people do, but moving to a different country. So,
yes.
And then, so earned your PhD at the University of Toronto.
Yep.
And then was it straight to Central Connecticut?
No, it was not. Okay. So,
am I going to need a pencil and a roadmap? Am I going to?
Yes.
Scorecard?
Probably will. Yes. It's to say that this was nonlinear is an understatement. So I will say one thing about being an international student first. And it was, granted, there was some structure within the graduate students kind of union so that you can meet other graduate students. We had a strong cohort within psychology. But the place that I felt most connected was I joined a choir and I met my husband in choir. And seriously, so when I got
in Toronto.
In Toronto,
okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so when we got married in Toronto, we actually had two choirs at our wedding because we were singing in two choirs. one in the choir loft, one down near the altar. And it was fantastic, but that's how we felt connected, right? And how we gained those connections. And that really, really helped. So if anybody who is listening is trying to help a student who is transitioning, especially internationally, it's, if you could find people who share some type of interest, passion, et cetera, like those are your people. And so that made the transition 100 times easier for me. But finished a PhD at University of Toronto, and I am fortunate enough to have a postdoctoral fellowship at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, where
Wow.
I'm working with working with kids who have cochlear implants. So I was doing research on speech and noise. That's what my dissertation was on. And so we were examining how kids with cochlear implants perceive speech in noisy backgrounds. And it was great. It was like a dream, except that my husband, who was working on his PhD in Toronto, had his advisor move to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. And so here we are, engaged and then newly married. And I am the American living in Canada. He is the Canadian living in the US. And so after about a year and a half of that, when I was into the postdoc for maybe 8 months or so, and this was right after 9/11, I was like, I can't do this. I cannot hack this. And so I had to make a really difficult decision and have a really difficult conversation with my mentors to say, look, I'm very, very sorry, but I can't persist in this postdoc. And so I just packed up everything and went to live with my husband in Providence, Rhode Island. And I thought, okay, I'll figure something out. I can adjunct. It'll be fine.
Right.
And so I got some jobs adjuncting at Worcester State College and at Brandeis University. And so I went up to Brandeis because I had met someone at Brandeis who came to our lab. His name is Art Wingfield. And I just thought, I'd just pay him a social call to say, hi, how are you doing? I met you when you came to Toronto and you toured our lab. How are things going? And I come in there and he starts talking to me. He says, I have a postdoctoral spot open. Are you interested in that? Like sitting right there. And I thought, really? And so I said, well, Art, I have this teaching stuff lined up. And I don't think I should start right now because I have to do, I have this adjunct commitment. And he said, no, I want you to start now. I said, okay. And so here I am now at a postdoc with Art Wingfield, who is just an incredibly generous man and, really gave me a foothold in lifespan development. So now I was doing language development, but with older adults. So I worked with kids. I worked with kids with cochlear implants, and now I'm working with older adults, which was fantastic. And so a postdoc for a couple of years. I have an assistant professorship, visiting professorship at Stonehill College for a couple of years. That finished. I went back to Brandeis. Like I said, Art, I don't know what I'm going to do. I finished this visiting professorship. And he said, well, I think we have another postdoc spot if you want to come back to that. And then I think there's a visiting assistant professorship that we can work out for you. I said, really, Art? Said, yes. Okay. So I go back to Brandeis. We buy a house. We have a baby. And my husband loses his job. And it's like, okay. So here I am. We have a new baby. We have a new house. Visiting assistant professorship at Brandeis. And my husband gets a job in Middletown, Connecticut. And I think, okay, well, I guess we're moving to Middletown, Connecticut, and we'll figure it out all over again. And in Connecticut that year, there was one job available as a professorship at Central Connecticut State University. One job. I applied for that job, and I was fortunate enough to get it. So I feel like I live a very charmed life.
Well, yeah, it's a yes and. Right? It's a yes and. It's also, you've just made the case for patron saints everywhere. People who look out for you and take care of you and offer opportunities. And I think you've also just described the challenges of being the trailing spouse. of, the upheaval. And even though your husband was being upended a couple of times there in that story, there was a trickle down effect to you. I think it speaks to your persistence and your grit and your determination to stick with it and find something that worked, especially becoming a new mom, the two of you starting a family together.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a while since I walked down that memory lane. Thanks a lot, Eric.
Well, and honestly, Marianne, this is the beauty of the podcasts that, we've been to dinner a bunch of times. We've gone to Psi Chi dinners. We've been at conventions together. And you don't normally, at a professional dinner, you don't normally ask someone, so what'd you do in high school? And so for me, that's one of the best parts of having this podcast is that we can talk about anything we want. And I get to learn more about my friends and ask them the questions that I've never had the time to ask them before. So speaking of time, I want to be respectful. I want to make sure, like, if you had a list of things, hey, I want to talk to Eric about this today on Psych Sessions, I want to make sure that you've gotten to your whole list. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention or to promote or to let our audience know about?
I just want to express my incredible gratitude for all of our chapter advisors, all of our faculty chapter advisors who volunteer their time and their effort and their talent to the students in their chapters. Their efforts often go unsung, and we are trying to do as much as we can now to really support them, where we have advisor meetups, where we're trying to build community to support chapter advisors. We just instituted a chapter support advisory committee that is intended to provide recommendations for how we can better support chapters, including and especially our chapter advisors. One thing that I started doing that is just so fulfilling for me personally is giving chapter advisors an opportunity to request a letter of appreciation from me that I send out to their administrators. So we have faculty advisors who are on the tenure track, right, who are trying to get promoted, tenured, and this way they can request a letter from me. I can say what they have done as a faculty advisor, and they put that in their portfolio and their materials. And this year, I think we sent over about 125 letters for faculty advisors, and I probably got back responses from about 70 administrators thanking me, thanking the faculty advisor. It felt so good for them to be seen by their faculty, by their administrators, and be celebrated by their administrators for what can be a lot of invisible, hard work.
Yeah.
And so we could not be Psi Chi without our chapter advisors. We would not exist without our chapter advisors, and we appreciate them so much.
Serving as a chapter advisor it's an interesting experience, and I've done it a couple of times in a couple iterations. I did it sometimes by myself, sometimes I had a co-advisor, but being a chapter advisor to me is like the gateway drug to Psi Chi. So if you do that and you start to enjoy it, and then you start taking some of your Psi Chi students to regional conventions, then you meet the regional VP, and then you meet other chapter advisors. There's oftentimes advisor meetups at the regionals. And then from being a chapter advisor after 8 years, I thought, I'm going to run for VP. That looks like pretty cool. You get to invite speakers, you get to help more students. And I don't expect you to remember this, but the first time I ran, I ran. I think I ran unopposed, which sometimes happens in the elections. And then I was Rocky Mountain Regional VP, and that was a pretty good gig. And I did it for 2 years, and I got to invite 2 different speakers, one each year as my keynote, my distinguished speaker. The first year was Albert Bandura. The second one was Elizabeth Loftus. And so the 2 humans alive at the time who had the most prestige in the English-speaking world, and there's actually data about that, they came to RMPA 2010, 2011 because I get to invite them. And not only did I get to meet them, but my students did, faculty advisors. When I invited Albert Bandura and we had an advisor lunch, I sat my steering committee members on both sides of him because I wanted to reward them. Steve Barney and Leslie Cramblett Alvarez, I wanted to reward them for all the work they'd been doing for the region. And then after that, ran for president. First time I ran, lost. I lost to John Gray. And we had a funny conversation about that. We got to know each other really well through Psi Chi. And, I told him, he told me, Eric, I kind of expected you to beat me. And I said to John, I kind of expected to also. But we have had an amazing relationship since that time, and then served as president, due to the president-elect, president, past president. And so since you are the representative of Psi Chi has been very good to me. I'm sitting in my office at home, and up and to my right is the 2025 Distinguished Member of Psi Chi plaque on my wall. And so Psi Chi has given me more than I deserved, and I'm thankful to be able to say that out loud. And so thank you, Marianne, for all that you do, for all of our students, for all of our faculty, for all of your staff. It's an organization that will always be near and dear to my heart.
Thank you, Eric. You have left such a legacy in Psi Chi, and I do not say that lightly. From your helped me initiatives to your staunch support of future initiatives, including the Christian Ladd Hall Scholarship for Mental Health Advocacy. Our culture of philanthropy has strengthened because of you and others like you who have given so much of their time, talent, treasure, testimony, and ties to Psi Chi. And we so appreciate all of those things to strengthen this culture of philanthropy that we're trying to build.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I do. All right, Marianne, you get the last words, and then we'll say goodbye. Any last thoughts?
If I could leave your listeners with one thing, it's that in these times, it's incredibly important that we look outward as opposed to being isolated and staying inward. When we feel overwhelmed, we can be like, I'm just going to hunker down. And I've learned personally and the hard way that when I'm starting to feel like that, I have to fight wanting to be isolated and instead reach outward, because there is a community there who is willing to support me, to uplift me, to uphold me. And sometimes we forget about that because we kind of get wrapped up in the frenzy of day-to-day life. And it's wonderful. This opportunity to talk with you, Eric, is a gift to be able to just slow down and remind ourselves of the communities that we've built and the communities that have supported us over time, and how we can impact those communities and have a really positive effect on our world. So I really appreciate that, Eric.
Well said. And Marianne, thank you so much for your time today. It was great to see you, and I really appreciate you and your time.